Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to be taking a break from the Borderlands Remastered Let's Play, and instead covering a bunch of news and information in regards to Borderlands 3, because a ton of news has come out over the course of the past couple of days. We have everything from the new Echonet system to a brand new element, which will be replacing Slag, and we also have some new key art, which has a ton of messages and codes and stuff like that hidden within it, and we're going to be covering all of that here in today's video, so hopefully guys will all sit back, relax, and enjoy. First things first, let's go ahead and talk about the Echonet, because this is the smallest bit of news that we have here today, but it's also a pretty big deal. So Randy Pitchford puts on Twitter, the Echonet 3.0 is a physical device your character carries. It is used by your character with every vending machine transaction, every menu transaction, and etc. So basically, all of our speculation from before turns out to be true. We're basically going to have the Borderlands equivalent of a Fallout Pip-Boy in Borderlands 3, which makes a ton of sense, right? I mean, if you look at the fact that certain bundles and certain pre-order bonuses for this game give you skins for your Echonet, it's going to have to actually be a physical device, and it looks like we're going to be having that in Borderlands 3, so that's definitely pretty interesting, and I have to wonder how much further are they going to take it, right? I mean, vending machine transactions, menu transactions, I mean, messing with your talents and stuff like that, that's all fine and dandy, but does this mean we can respec anywhere? Is the new use station going to be tied to the Echonet 3.0? We really have no idea. There's definitely a lot we can speculate about here, but all I know is the Echonet is going to be a physical device, and that is definitely pretty interesting. Now, moving along here, like I mentioned, we have a new element, so let's go ahead and cover that now. Going back to Randy Pitchford on Twitter, he says, there is no Slag. We replaced it with something that actually makes a little sense. The new element damage type, which is like a nuclear radiation effect, has a similar effect to Slag and also has a damage over time component. So it looks like Slag is on the way out, radiation is on the way in, but radiation just sounds like better Slag in my opinion, right? I mean, it's going to make your enemy vulnerable to other damage types, and it's also going to have its own damage over time component. So I guess the big question is, how vulnerable is this radiation effect going to make your enemies? If we go back to Borderlands 2, in normal and true Vault Hunter mode, Slag would make it so your enemies take double damage from non-Slag sources, but of course in normal and true Vault Hunter mode, things aren't very difficult, right? So you don't really need to use Slag, but in Ultimate Vault Hunter mode, you definitely needed to use Slag, because in Ultimate Vault Hunter mode, Slag would make it so enemies take triple damage from non-Slag sources and 50% increased damage from Slag sources, so it was pretty much required all the time, and I've talked about this in my live streams, but for me personally, I didn't really like Slag that much, because it felt like this extra thing you had to do to even be able to play the game. Like, if an enemy was weak to fire, that didn't matter unless they were slagged, right? If you wanted to try and take down their shield with a shock weapon, you first had to slag them, otherwise your shock weapon was pretty much useless. Same thing with corrosive versus robots, and it just felt like Slag was this extra thing that you had to do all the time. It didn't really seem like it added anything to the game. It was like this extra step that you had to go through to actually be able to play the game, right? But it's looking like radiation is going to be taking over for Slag, so I have to wonder, how vulnerable is radiation going to make enemies in Borderlands 3? Because if it's 3 times as vulnerable like we saw in Borderlands 2, then radiation's basically going to be the new Slag and everybody's going to have to use it. But if it only makes them maybe 50% more vulnerable or something like that, then maybe you won't need to use it that much. I suppose we're going to have to wait and see. But radiation, which is a pretty cool idea for an element, is going to be taking over for Slag in Borderlands 3. I definitely find that to be pretty interesting. But moving along here, let's go ahead and talk about the new key art. I'm sure you guys have seen this popping up over the course of the past couple of days. They gave us this image, which is full of hidden messages and Morse code and teasers and stuff like that. And here in this video, I want to cover some of them, but by no means am I going to be covering all of them, because I'm sure we're going to continue to find more and more codes over the course of the coming days. So first things first here, there's a shift code for 5 Borderlands 2 golden keys, as well as a skin for Maya on your screen right now is going to be the code. Feel free to punch it into your game. We have in Morse code, we don't speak of Sanctuary 2. right? That is one of the hidden messages here in this image, and I find that to be super interesting, right? Because Sanctuary 1 is the city, right? The city that we hear about in the original Borderlands game, and then of course the city that we occupy in Borderlands 2, and we also know from the collector's edition of Borderlands 3 that Sanctuary 3 is going to be a ship, and likely it's going to be the ship that we use to travel between all the planets we're going to be occupying during the game. So what about Sanctuary 2? Apparently we don't speak of it. Is it possible that Sanctuary 2 is a failed ship that we tried to put together that ended up crashing somewhere, which may or may not have killed off certain main characters? That's definitely a possibility. Another message we find here is, who is the Destroyer? Well, in the original Borderlands game, the Destroyer is basically the Vault Monster, but what does that have to do with Borderlands 3, I have to wonder? Another message is, where is the first Vault Hunter? Now, this has a lot of people wondering, who is the first Vault Hunter, right? I'm wondering that myself, but if I had to make a guess, the first Vault Hunter that we really know about would be Commandant Steele, right? She technically is the person who opened up the first vault, so perhaps her body and her powers are somehow being used. I talked about this a lot during my One Life Challenge and my Borderlands Remastered Let's Play. Commandant Steele is a siren. Yet for some reason, that plays no role in the story whatsoever, like at all, in any way, shape, or form. It's a non-factor, essentially. It's like, hey, this one of the main bad guys from the original game is a siren, but that really doesn't matter whatsoever for some reason, even though sirens are incredibly important in Borderlands lore. And for those who don't know, in Borderlands 3, the overarching story appears to be that the Calypso twins are stealing the powers from sirens, right? We kind of see them take the powers from Lilith right there in the trailer, right? So if Commandant Steele is a siren and she could be the first Vault Hunter, and this is actually asking, where is the first Vault Hunter? Is it possible that Commandant Steele's body somehow is playing a role in the story in Borderlands 3? We'll have to wait and see. We saw her as well in the Borderlands DLC, which was pretty weird, but I have no idea, guys. This is definitely pretty interesting. Now, I'd love to hear your theories down there in the comments. Now, if we go back to the image here and we look at the top of the art near the ship, it shows a face, an equal sign, and a key. So what does this mean, right? Is happiness key? Is the sun key? Is the face key? Is moon key? What is the key? But apparently something here is going to be the key. And going back to it, one of the reasons why I said there is so much more to this image than what I'm going to be covering here in this video is because we keep finding more things pretty much every day, right? So if we turn up the brightness quite a bit here, people have found that we have this series of numbers on the right-hand side, which apparently translates to find the machine, right? What machine are we talking about? Are we talking about Claptrap here? Is it a different machine? We have no freaking idea. Over on the left side, we see the phrase, and I'm so bad pronouncing this stuff, Necrotofeo, maybe? And if you punch that into Google, you're going to find some stuff about Greek cemeteries, but nothing really concrete, right? It doesn't really translate necessarily to anything, so we're all kind of wondering, what the heck is that supposed to mean? But Greek cemeteries do pop up, and we do know for a fact that Gearbox Software loves to use Greek mythology in their games. I mean, heck, sirens and calypsos are both used in Greek mythology, and again, the overarching story of Borderlands 3 is that the Calypso twins are stealing the powers of the sirens. So perhaps this has something to do with Borderlands 3. Perhaps a cemetery, a graveyard of sorts is going to be in the mix. We really have no idea, guys. There is definitely a lot to read into, but I suppose a lot of our questions are going to be answered in the very near future, because in just under 2 weeks' time, the official gameplay reveal for Borderlands 3 is going to be coming, and then of course the game itself comes out in September. So I imagine over the course of the coming weeks and months, we're going to learn so much more about the game, and as always, I will do my best to keep you guys posted with more details as they become available. But one final thing before we wrap up the video here today, I mentioned that gameplay reveal on May 1st, and I figured I should probably also bring up the fact that I'm going to be there for the gameplay reveal. So 2K Games reached out to me. They're going to be flying me out to Los Angeles and putting me up in a hotel, and I'm going to be there at the event playing Borderlands 3, recording footage, and posting that footage to my YouTube channels. I am so freaking freaking grateful and so freaking excited about this. I've never flown out to a gaming event of any kind whatsoever. I've never really worked with a game studio in this way before, so I'm pretty freaking excited about it, and I thought I should mention it here in this video. I will be there at the gameplay reveal. I don't think I'm going to be on camera or anything like that. I don't imagine they're going to have me up on the main stage or anything like that, but I'll be in the background playing the game, tweeting about the game, and posting videos of the game that day, which is pretty freaking cool. So stay tuned for more information in regards to that, as well as information in regards to Borderlands 3 in general. And thank you guys so much from the bottom of my heart for all the support you guys have given Near's Let's Plays ever since the reveals of Borderlands 3. Like, the support here on the channel has been absolutely freaking incredible, and I'm very excited about the future of the channel, as well as excited about Borderlands 3. Man, this game is turning out to be freaking incredible, and I cannot wait. In less than 2 weeks time, I'll be actually playing the game and posting videos of it, and man, I'm super freaking stoked. But ladies and gentlemen, that's all I have for you guys here today. Once again, I will keep you posted with more details on Borderlands 3 as they become available, but until then, thank you guys all so much for listening, and I hope you guys all have a wonderful day.